I have this desire to love the world and take care of people and stand up for people, but also have a fighter in me. I used to fight a lot in school because I got picked on. I used to fight in the streets because of racism. I fought in the ring as a competitor. I did lots of martial arts, so I competed a lot there. I've done a lot to work towards disarming people who have a negative perception of my identity. Growing up in Windsor, I was told basically again and again in various ways that I didn't belong. Windsor wasn't a place where people would just point and laugh at you. Windsor was a city where if they didn't like you, people would come up and just fight you. Someone would come up to me and say, you know, you're a terrorist, and push me and get really aggressive, and then it turned into a street fight. Though I enjoy martial arts and I enjoy competing in that sense, I didn't enjoy the fact that I ended up, hurting the person. Instead of pushing back, I threw a punch back, and I know to throw my punches very crisp and tight, whereas normally people who haven't trained will throw wild looping punches. He was a strong guy, but they were all missing because they were looping, and I was punching tight, so all mine were landing. Getting hit enough times, he kind of fell down. I felt I should have been able to do more than that. That wasn't the real solution to the problem. A lot of my friends who've known me when I was younger know me as a scrapper, so they know that part of myself. Now, as a politician, no one knows that side of me. People see me as a very smiley, friendly person, and I like that. I don't want anyone to be intimidated by me or afraid of me. When I achieve something, I'm like, wow, the little kid from Windsor is totally blown away right now. Like the first time when I was on the cover of a magazine as Toronto's Most Stylish, I literally had an internal shock where most of my life was not stylish, but not likable, not anything. And to be on the cover of that, I still can't really process it because it's such a different world from when I've come from. There was a long period of time in my life where I was the furthest thing from someone that people would want to be close to like, and now I have this complete opposite kind of reality.
He's out, and he's the person who made the bombs, and he has no remorse. So I have no faith that he may not be persuaded to do the same thing again.
Bal Gupta has had to show a brave face for nearly 31 years.
Other victims' families as well. We may smile outside, but really we may be crying inside, remembering what it would have been. It's the pain which will keep on eating our inside till we die.
Air India Flight 182 was en route from Vancouver to London and India on June 23, 1985. It exploded in the skies over Ireland. The suspects, Sikh extremists hoping for an independent homeland in India. Only Inderjit Singh Rayat ever served time for the crime. There are memorials across the country to honor the victims. The sundial on Toronto's lakeshore marks the moment that changed hundreds of families' lives. You can see from the lists of names here, the repetition of names, that entire families were wiped out. Ramwati Gupta's name is etched here along with the hundreds of others. She was a mother and just 38 years old.
We would have been married for 51 years on February.
This photo was taken just before she took her final trip.
For us, there will not be any end, because this is something which cannot be undone.
Sure. Tom Mulcair has called Donald Trump a bully, a fascist, and somebody with racist policies. Do you agree with that assessment?
I've also called out Trump for his campaign, which was clearly misogynistic. It was disrespectful towards women. That's unacceptable, and it needs to be denounced. I've called it out for being Islamophobic and xenophobic and divisive in general. And those are things we need to call out. We'll know that Angela Merkel also called out some of the policies and some of Mr. Trump's announcements as being unacceptable for a leader of a nation. I think it's important to call out things that are wrong, and Mr. Mulcair has done that as well.
Is he a fascist, Donald Trump?
Well, it's clear that what he's doing is not in the spirit of democracy. It's not in the spirit of building an inclusive society. It's not in the spirit of open discourse and a progressive society. So to me, it's very troubling what he's talking about.
I find this is a tough issue for the NDP because a lot of the people who support you, I think, want to hear a real denunciation of him. But if you want to run this country one day, that is still Canada's largest trading partner. You have to choose your words carefully, don't you?
It's true. I mean, we have to be able to call out injustice, and I've done that. And I believe, I encourage people to be able to call out any leader that's putting forward ideas that are hurtful to society. It needs to be called out. We do need to have a relationship, but that doesn't mean we're afraid of calling out things that are wrong.
I want to ask you finally about the fact that you have long identified throughout your career with the grievances of the Sikh community against the Indian government. And you supported, for example, labeling the 1984 terrible riots in Delhi as a genocide of the Sikhs. Some people go further than that, don't they? Do you think that some Canadian Sikhs go too far when they honor Talvinder Singh Parmar as a martyr of the Sikh nation, when they put up posters of him as a shaheed, a martyr, when he was the architect of the Air India bombing? Do you think that's appropriate?
Well, I think it's so important that we really clarify a misconception that exists. There has been a lot of work and seems to be creating a conflict that's between Hindus and Sikhs. And for me, that's something that really offended me. I grew up with a lot of close friends and dear family friends that were from the Hindu faith that told me stories of how they actually put themselves at risk to save their Sikh neighbors. And so for me, one of my goals was to erase this false narrative of a Hindu-Sikh conflict. And what I really believe in...
Forgive me, but you could do that right now by saying, no, it isn't appropriate to put up posters of Canada's worst ever mass murderer. As a martyr.
Let me make sure we...
Do you think that's appropriate?
Well, let me just clarify a point here. It's so important that we rid this notion that there's ever been a conflict between Hindus and Sikhs. It's never been the case. We've been living in existence as neighbors.
Third time of asking. It's not a hard
let me just
question.
I'm just finishing my sentence.
Third time of asking. Is it appropriate to put up
Sorry,
posters?
I'm just going to finish my sentence. So the community has lived together, coexisted in peace and harmony, and we need to celebrate that. So naming something a genocide takes the blame off of a community and puts it on the government. That's the facts. It was a government that initiated this. There's been great reports that point that out. There's been a lot of investigations and commissions that really clarify that it was the government, not the people. And I think that we need to make sure that we never inappropriately accuse the people of doing something when it was not their fault. This is something that's always been a government initiative and not the people. And so that's what I really believed in, making sure it was named a genocide and not a riot.
What about putting up posters of Parmar, the architect of the Air India bombing, as a martyr? Is that appropriate, yes or no?
So it is so unacceptable that the violence that was committed, the heinous massacre that was committed, is something that Sikhs, Muslims, Hindus all denounce. The violence that was perpetrated against innocent Canadian lives is something we all denounce. I regularly denounce it on the anniversary. It's something that we all collectively are opposed to. There is no question about this, that innocent lives were killed, and it is completely unacceptable. It needs to be denounced as a terrorist act.
So you won't denounce those posters of Parmar?
I don't know who was responsible, but I think we need to find out who's truly responsible. We need to make sure that the investigation actually results in a conviction of someone who's actually responsible. And we need to, as a society, collectively, unequivocally denounce any time innocent lives are lost. That is something unacceptable. All Canadians stand together, united against any forms of violence, terror against Canadians, and in fact against anyone around the world.
I have to leave it there. Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it, and congratulations on your win.
Thank you very much.
Jagmeet Singh, the new NDP leader.